Hey, good afternoon. This is Steve Bullock. I want to thank committee members as well as members of the press that are joining on this call today. You know, over the last 2 months, we've been working around the clock to prioritize health and safety of Montanans, work to slow the spread of this often dangerous and fast-moving virus. To do so, we took aggressive measures to fight this virus by keeping Montanans home. The challenges presented by COVID-19 have been unprecedented, yet Montanans demonstrated their strong sense of community time and time again. And it's because of that we are the lowest per capita in positive tests and lowest per capita in hospitalizations in this country. That's what's afforded us, well, a few states in the nation really could, from a science-based measure, to start looking at what steps we can take for a gradual and phased reopening of the economy. And while certainly we continue to prioritize the health and safety of Montanans, I also know that folks all over are struggling financially and eager to reach new normal. It was only about 2 weeks ago that I asked this group to come together and provide advice and guidance on how best to spend the $1.25 billion allocated to Montana through the CARES Act to sustain Montanans through the pandemic, and for the group to consider how we can assure that we're setting the foundation for the state to be on a long-term path to economic recovery. And I do want to sincerely start by thanking the members of the advisory group for dedicating your time and sharing your perspective and expertise over the last couple of weeks. In talking to Larry Simpkins, who's sitting next to me, we're saying, did you really know what you were signing up for? And look, this has been a truncated period of time, a short period of time, and you gave a lot. I know that many of you on this call are incredibly busy working through your own unique challenges related to this virus. So I appreciate your fast and your thorough work to craft recommendations as we work to deploy some of these funds to assist those who need it most. It's critical, certainly, that this funding reaches all corners of our state, considers really all the facets of industries and sectors of the economy, and that's why I asked you all to examine how workers, how employers, and how communities have been impacted to ensure that the money's dispersed in a fair and transparent process while really considering the needs of each region of the state. And your firsthand knowledge and the additional work you've done to consider feedback from Montanans on how this virus is impacting workers, businesses, and our communities and the Montana economy really do, I trust, will become invaluable. I'd also want to thank the Montanans who submitted their public comments to be considered by your advisory group. We had more than 1,400 comments submitted through the website and through letters to my office from a diverse group of Montanans who shared the specific needs in their communities and many shared creative ideas to meet those needs. I'm looking forward to digging into the recommendations that your group provided, and for Montanans across our state to try to make decisions on how to begin deploying this money quickly and responsibly. I'll be consulting these recommendations as well as my budget staff and other state and local agencies as we get some of the money out both thoughtfully and to address some of the immediate needs. And some needs are so apparent and immediate that moving forward with them even before, I'll review the more comprehensive recommendations from this group and from the public comments received. For example, on Wednesday, I announced that $5 million under the CARES Act would be made available to grants to local health departments, urban Indian clinics, and tribal communities, health communities to boost efforts to perform contact tracing and offer education support to local businesses in developing plans to safely reopen and adhere to social distancing guidelines. So today I really do look forward to hearing and considering the recommendations from all of you on how we can get additional assistance out now while ensuring that we're preserving appropriate funds to cover the unexpected and address other needs as they become known. And so thank you again, all of you, for your time, your ideas, your commitment to this effort on behalf of all the citizens of Montana. And I'd like to turn it over to the person who's been chairing this effort, Larry Simpkins, and was also reflecting on early into my administration, asked Larry to be one of the co-chairs of the Main Street Montana project, a project that spanned over a couple-year period. Here, when he picked up the call, which I appreciate he did, put all this into just a couple of week period. So thank all of you, but particular thanks to Larry.
Thank you, Governor. Our advisory council is proud to present you with this COVID Relief Fund recommendation report. I want to open with some highlights, but today what I'd like to do most is leave time for input of the advisory council. So on April 15th, you announced the advisory council comprised of 24 Montanans to provide advice and guidance on how best to deploy Montana's $1.25 billion CARES Act funds to put Montana on a path towards economic recovery and to meet the needs of our communities. If you recall, we were expecting federal guidance within 48 hours on April 17th. With an urgency and a desire to deploy these funds quickly to those most impacted, we convened a virtual meeting that afternoon and established our initial goals, objectives, and rules of engagement. Every person on the task force attended. By the time we received federal guidance, which wasn't until April 22nd, the task force was fully engaged with subcommittees, calls, and input that spanned days, nights, and weekends. Under normal circumstances, the timeline was challenging. Under the current COVID circumstances, we could not have done this without the mutual respect, transparency, and candor of everyone involved. On the good side, this entire project was done with no travel budget and it has a zero carbon footprint. So I feel incredibly fortunate to have had a front row seat to witness the unselfish and tireless effort of this group. I want to give you an overview of the process. As I mentioned, we started with a blank slate with no federal guidance. We had 4 virtual meetings for a gauging process, but frankly, most of the work was done between the meetings. When the federal guidance came out, recommendations primarily fit within that guidance. And not everyone's wishes are contained in the report, but the details of each recommendation to support the report are part of the appendix. Let me tell you what this report is. It is a report that focuses on 3 primary categories of providing financial assistance to Montana citizens, Montana businesses, and Montana nonprofits. The report provides a framework for where the state could focus resources and ideas regarding distribution. The report also provides other considerations that should be considered when making decisions regarding the funds. What this report isn't is it's not a list of selected or specific projects or grant recipients. It is not a recommendation of how much money should be allocated to each specific relief program. The state has an obligation to ensure the funds are spent in accordance with the federal guidelines, rules, and regulations. The state must be accountable for the expenditure for every taxpayer dollar. And our report does not focus on the level of detail as specific as the state must ensure when it distributes these funds. The council established 3 primary silos of the funding. 1, the state and local government funds. 2, economic assistance. And 3, the unforeseen impacts. In our effort to align the expertise within the council, we effectively identify the best way to establish an immediate safety net for individuals, business nonprofits, and the council focus their time and efforts on economic assistance. So let me take you through the three main categories in the report. First is economic assistance, and that's for an immediate safety net. Number one, food safety. Provide enhanced support for individual food security through food banks and food pantries. Number two, provide providers of social safety net services. Provide enhanced support for providers of immediate social safety net services. And three, individuals, businesses, and nonprofits. Provide rental and mortgage assistance to individuals, businesses, and nonprofits. The second category under economic assistance is business stabilization. Direct support. Direct support for Montana businesses recommends a grant assistance program and support for Missoula nonprofits, or Montana nonprofits, I'm sorry. Number two is sustainability. Assistance for businesses and nonprofits through forgivable loans, zero to low interest loans, or state of Montana backed lines of credit for guarantee. The third category specifically focuses on tourism and a hospitality jumpstart. Direct, immediate, and midterm assistance to that industry. Support for Montana businesses with similar direct grant assistance. And then longer term sustainability. Assistance to businesses and nonprofits through forgivable loans, low to zero interest loans, or state of Montana backed lines of credit or guarantee. So that's a preview of the main categories of the report. What I'd like to do now is open it up for input from the committee and allow you to hear directly from the people that have been on the council.
Great.
Ryan will open the line.
5-star.
Oh, I'm sorry, dial 5-star to unmute your line for the committee.
And we've got Randy Chesler, your line is open.
Hi, Randy.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you for spending some time with us today and asking for feedback on this really important topic. So your staff and our chair, Larry, have really done a great job guiding this process. But I wanted to point out that included in the recommendation under Section 10, there are over 40 recommendations that we received from businesses and individuals in Montana. And I think it'd be helpful to review these in detail. There's a lot of good ideas from a broad collection of people. For example, the Montana Lodging and Hospitality Association addresses the hotel industry that's been hit really hard with almost 8 out of 10 rooms empty. Another from the Montana Restaurant Association and a group of restaurant owners. They provide almost 60,000 jobs in the state. Another one from Montana Newspaper Association, hit hard by the lack of advertising and critical to delivering local news. So just wanted to point that out, that it's not in the main recommendation, but it is included under Section 10. And again, thank you for your leadership on this really, really important subject of how to spend a large amount of money to best help the folks here in Montana. So thank you.
Thank you, Randy. I appreciate that. Yeah, I wasn't sure what I was going to get, and when I was just handed a binder that not only has the report, but a whole lot of other stuff in there that I will be, and I'll count on some of my coworkers as well to, I guess I now know how I get to spend a good chunk of my weekend.
Some good ideas in there.
I look forward to reviewing not only the report in close detail, but as you note, the Appendix 10, the appendix with letters that were submitted in.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Well, thanks for the good work.
If you have a comment from the committee, from the task force, please dial 5-star.
If any task force members want to say anything, 5-star.
Jackie Hill, your line should be open.
Governor Bullock, Jackie Hill.
Jackie.
How are you? I just want to recognize and applaud the committee for their work and recommendations. That one of the big challenges we had is taking a look at the number of Montanans that are unemployed due to the impacts of this virus, including our businesses that are closed down, and at the same time addressing the needs of our frontline workers who've been out there every day under really, really difficult conditions. So I hope that when you're reading the report, you'll take a look at that and understand what a challenge that was to bring together to share with you. Thank you.
I sure appreciate that, Jackie. Thank you, and I sure will.
5 stars to comments or questions. Next up, we've got Tim Burton.
Hi, Governor. How are you? Governor, I just want to thank you for putting this process in place. I want to thank Larry for his leadership. And I know it's outlined in the report, but I got to tell you that your staff was as responsive and supportive through this process as you can possibly imagine. I know that this report, Governor, is not the end, it is the beginning. And I just want you to know that the cities and towns in Montana will continue to work with your administration to get good and positive results for Montanans throughout the state. So thank you, Governor, and we look forward to continuing this hard work.
I appreciate that, Tim, and please extend, first, my personal thanks to you, but also those in the League of Cities and Towns that you were reaching out to as you guys went through a 2-week sprint on this thing.
Thank you, Governor.
Appreciate
that.
Committee members, 5-star to comment or ask a question. Next, Janice Matson. Janice, your line should be open.
Hello, Janice Matson here. I, too, want to commend the staff and all the folks who put tremendous amount of effort into this project. In reading some of those letters that have come in that were shared with all of us, it's just mind-boggling how many people out there are truly in need. And it's wonderful that there's an opportunity to provide some of that assistance through all of these programs. So thank you again, and thank you, Governor, for including these people in this process. I think they've done a wonderful job. And again, looking forward to working with you in the future on this, getting this money out to our people as soon as we can. Thank you.
Really appreciate it, Janice, and thanks for your good work.
Thank you.
Next up is Shalon Hastings. Shalon, your line should be open.
Thank you. Governor Bullock, I would like to commend Representative Lou Jones and Representative John Sesso and the other members of the working group that formed outside of the task force that did a good chunk of work. Those two just were really decisive and able to get us lined out and in a good direction to take on this very large responsibility. And also, thank you to Larry Simpkins and yourself for all of this. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Shalon, very much. Now you get a little sense with Senator Sesso and Representative Jones what I have to deal with every legislative session. So.
Exactly.
Anybody else?
Senator Sesso. Senator John Sesso.
Senator Sesso.
As a legislature,
Hey, You just came on. We might have had you muted. Go ahead, Senator.
I was just not wanting to let that comment pass that our dealings together as legislators working with you was great. Was great training for trying to get this done on behalf of the task force and bringing to you what we think is really a good framework for you to begin to make the decisions you got now to make in terms of getting this support out to Montanans quickly. That is I think paramount on the minds of everybody I worked with throughout the process of these 2 weeks is to continue to emphasize the urgency, and I know your staff is ready and capable for sure. And what we've heard most from the citizens that are hurting is the whole concept of now and getting them help in the near term. That's why, Larry, the group structured the committee almost in a priority order relative to the immediate safety net. And then the business stabilization piece is keeping our eye on the extended impacts for certain of the industries that are going to be hurting for some time beyond what might be the deadline, at least so far, of the expenditure of these funds. And the last thing that we left out, because as Larry points out in his cover letter and as the task force, I think, came to the conclusion that your staff, the state executive, is in the best position to look out for the state's finances and by extension all of the subdivisions at the local level. But we really have to keep our eye on that cliff that the COVID crisis has created, and to be real creative about how we look out for the longer term in after the December 31st deadline and into next year, and really probably the years that follow. And the lessons we learned in 2009. When we got through the Great Recession as a really strong state, one of the few that stayed in the black that you were able to sustain over the course of your tenure. We want to really use those lessons as a guide to making sure we do the same thing this time. And although it's not specifically in the report, it is in the flow chart on page 7 or 6 on a main area we've got to keep our eye on, and we would just I just make that point because it might be missing in the report, but it's still very, very vital, and I'd ask you to give that some attention as we decide how to expend these dollars in the next 7 months. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Sesso, and I do appreciate those comments in many ways. You know, in some respects, when you look at other states, and that's not dealing with the needs of local government, because we left $300 million in the bank, because of the budget stabilization reserve, that on the immediate hit, we're in a better place than so many. But there is a lot of national discussion about when businesses are hurting, when individuals are hurting. Well, that also translates to what government services can provide and what our state and local governments are. And I think it will be an interesting time because there's been, I'm on at least one call every week with all of the governors and members of the federal coronavirus task force, which always includes the vice president, often includes the president. And from a uniform perspective, both Democrats and Republicans by and large have been saying that has to be a consideration. Now, what we don't know is whether there's going to be another CARES Act bill passed, or there's some discussion of even saying whatever the next bill is passed, even if it's not funded, then one of the things that they will be doing is actually reaching backward and saying that this money that you all have been considered can be part of what is used to make up for some of those lost revenues along the way. So it's something that as we go forward, we'll be taking a close look, cognizant of trying to get to your initial point, some of the money immediately out there because there are those immediate needs from a safety net perspective, from a business stabilization but also with the recognition of that we're on May 1st and, we still have 7 months left of this year as we try to say what's the best way to spend this money. Any other comments? If not, I'll turn it back over to Larry.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Governor, as you heard in a couple of the responses, the appendix and the importance of the appendix. So just to be clear, the report is a summary and supported by everything that's in those letters. We heard from people all over the state. We developed those recommendations, based on hundreds of conversations and phone calls and email exchanges from all over the state. So there really is transparency and the ability to support the things that are in the report. You should be proud of the efforts of everyone involved in participating in this process, the council members, their constituents, and your staff, particularly Tom Livers, Amy Sassano, Ryan Evans, Adam Schaefer, and Ken Fickler were on call day and night for the needs of the council, and we could not have accomplished it without their support. And finally, I want to acknowledge the reality of where we are. During this process, which is a little over 2 weeks, one of the 24 members of the council, their mother contracted COVID-19 in another state. She passed away this week. So our thoughts and prayers are with her family, but it does resonate that what we're doing here is real, and we are all honored that you trust us to do this work, so thank you.
Thank you, Larry. And I'll amplify that I haven't been involved in this, but so appreciate my coworkers, the staff that spent 2 weeks doing this, just like every one of the committee members did, and providing all that support. And thank you for the members of the committee that spoke up, that also acknowledge the hard work that they've been doing, because it's often pulling multiple shifts, not just on this, but on other areas as we look. And again, my heartfelt thanks to the committee members to provide at least an advisory or recommendation document that asks you in short term, without any playbook, to come up with what are some ways that we should be thinking about best employing these dollars. And while I haven't dug into it all yet, certainly will, it seems that you all met and perhaps exceeded the mark in what is really a tight time period. So I so appreciate all of your good work, and I look forward to diving into the work that you did. Thanks so much.